Most people picture the end of the world as a sudden, cinematic explosion, a nuclear flash, a zombie outbreak, or an EMP that turns the lights out forever. But if we look at history, society doesn't snap overnight. It breaks down in layers, slowly grinding to a halt while everyday life tries to keep staggering forward. In Weimar Germany in the 1920s, the government didn't collapse all at once, but the economy degraded so severely that kids used stacks of hyperinflated currency as toy building blocks. People still went to work, but their money was entirely worthless. During Hurricane Katrina, there were no action heroes wandering through a quiet wasteland. There was a massive infrastructural failure that left thousands stranded and vulnerable, surrounded by fleets of flooded-out rescue vehicles that couldn't even start. This graphic maps out a descending staircase of systemic failure. It starts at normalcy at the top and steps down through 7 distinct layers of breakdown, ending at total civilizational collapse at the bottom. A common error in preparation is fixating exclusively on that bottom step. Most plans focus on a Mad Max scenario, ignoring the 6 layers of grinding reality that occur long before society actually disappears. The breakdown always starts invisibly. Level 1 is the collapse of trust. Before the power grid fails, people lose faith in their institutions, the media, and eventually their neighbors. Political tribalism and social fragmentation replace community long before physical systems break. This chart illustrates level 2, economic collapse. On the left, you see a stagnant wage line. On the right, the cost of goods skyrockets on an exponential hyperinflation curve. Stores stay open and people keep going to work, but their purchasing power simply vanishes. Citizens in Venezuela recently experienced this firsthand, carrying stacks of low-denomination bolívares just to buy a loaf of bread. The cash effectively turned into worthless paper, while the banks were still technically operating. Surviving these first 2 levels doesn't require a bunker or a wilderness bug-out bag. It requires the ability to independently evaluate information and build multiple streams of income while maintaining low debt. Level 3 introduces physical friction, supply chain collapse. The grocery store shelves don't instantly go empty. Instead, they look strange. You'll find plenty of junk food, but specific vital items like antibiotics, computer chips, or fuel become completely and unpredictably unavailable. Level 4 is where the foundational systems of modern life shut off. When the power grid fails, communications go dark. Wi-Fi drops, cell towers overload, and you enter a massive information vacuum. Within 12 hours, the cascading effects create a trap. Without electricity, ATMs cannot dispense cash and DUS pumps fail. Fuel supplies dwindle, and non-functional traffic lights create immediate, massive gridlock. Standard government advice often recommends a 72-hour emergency kit. In a level 4 collapse, that timeline is inadequate. By day 3, municipal water pressure drops, perishable food spoils, and local stores are stripped bare. You need at least 2 weeks of self-sufficiency. Let's test your readiness right now. Pause this video, look around the room you're sitting in, and write down 3 specific, realistic things you would need to survive a local power outage lasting 14 full days. Early physical collapse means the roads are jammed and resources are scarce. Leaving for the woods without a specific destination is likely to fail. Survival at this stage is built on local sourcing, redundancy, and sheltering in place. If the physical grid stays down, you hit levels 5 and 6, the collapse of security and governance. The government might still exist in name, but emergency services are completely overwhelmed. Local neighborhoods have to become entirely responsible for themselves. Popular fiction insists this is when society devolves into roaming bands of violent looters. However, research into past disasters consistently proves the opposite. A phenomenon called catastrophe compassion often takes over, where cooperation and altruism spike as people face shared threats. Extreme isolation is a liability. When survival groups fail, it is rarely because human nature is inherently selfish. They fail because of poor structural planning. A lack of social capital and overly rigid, authoritarian leadership will fracture a group from the inside long before an external threat arrives. During the conflict in Bosnia in the 1990s, as national governance fell apart, local power structures emerged. Survival depended on your bloc, your neighbors, and the micro-community you managed to build out of the rebel. Surviving a social collapse is not a tactical firearms problem. It is a community-building problem. Adaptability, shared resources, and strong local relationships are the primary tools for defense. This leads to the final, rarest stage, Level 7, civilizational collapse. This is what it looks like when an empire falls completely. Trade networks permanently fracture, centralized authority dissolves, and generations of progress are wiped away, leaving descendants to live drastically differently than their ancestors did. During the late Bronze Age collapse, interconnected kingdoms in the Mediterranean shattered within a few decades. Written languages were forgotten, and complex architecture vanished into the dust. At Level 7, the objective is no longer immediate personal survival. The question becomes, what human knowledge, what agricultural skills, and what fragments of culture can be preserved for the future? Curiously, the vast majority of people preparing for a disaster fixate completely on this final stage. They spend years preparing for the end of the world, while remaining almost entirely vulnerable to levels 1 through 4, the stages most likely to occur in our actual lifetimes. This matrix maps the specific skill set required to navigate each individual level of collapse. Level 1 demands independent evaluation. Level 2 requires multiple income streams. Level 4 is about physical redundancy, and Level 5 demands strong community building. Preparing for a world that no longer works the way it used to requires a different kind of resilience than preparing for its end. The goal is to build the capabilities that keep you functional as the layers of the system begin to fail.